All right.
What's up, guys? I hope you're feeling alive. And this is Josiah Keneally. You're listening and tuning into the Young Adults Today podcast, where we talk about reaching the next generation in our world today. And this morning, we're joined by Todd Tilghman. How are you?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for joining us this morning and today.
My pleasure. I appreciate you inviting me. Thanks.
You bet. And for the listener tuning in, Todd and his wife, Brooke, have 8 children, which is amazing. And
Yeah.
also, he is season 18 winner of The Voice and
Yeah.
has a passion for the Lord, passion for the next generation, and for ministry, has been a rural pastor for a number of years. I'll let Todd share his story, but I thought I would let the listener in on a special treat. You guys know that I'm a proud girl dad. And this morning, our 2-year-old daughter, Aurora, saw me getting ready. And this is what she said. And I pressed record. Check this out. If you didn't hear that, basically that was our 2-year-old daughter, Aurora, saying, Dada, do podcast. And I didn't know that she knew that that's what was happening. I didn't know that she knew what a podcast is or was, but more is caught than taught. And excited to hang with you, Todd.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here. That is cool though. She kind of little kids, man, I'm telling you. And they'll tell you the truth too.
Yep. It's a breath of fresh air, isn't it?
It is.
It's amazing. Well, I thought we could start with you, and there's been a lot happening in your life, but can you just maybe start with some of your journey of life and leadership and take us to today?
Oh man. Oh man. So my wife and me got married. I mean, we dated like as kids and we got married as kids. So when we got married, I was 20 years old, she was 18. Um, and that's been almost 24 years now. So so it'll be 24 years in November. But I when we got married, I was already sort of in ministry. I was in like a youth ministry and entering into like the process of being licensed and ordained into pastoral ministry. And so really it's a very long, complicated story. In all those years, I was a youth pastor, an associate pastor, lead pastor, worship pastor, kind of the whole time. It was all at the same church, and also in that time, early in our marriage and family, we had 3 sons. My oldest is 22, and my next oldest is 18, and right after him is 17. Those second two are like 18 months apart or so. And after the third son was born, we adopted our oldest daughter from Korea.
Wow.
Then found out that she had a biological sister born, and so we adopted our second oldest daughter from Korea. And then after that, we biologically we had 5 boys in a row. So we had 2 more boys. My oldest girls are 13 and 12, and we had 2 more boys after that, and they are 9 and 8. And then to round it out, we had a baby girl, and she's 6. So our oldest and youngest are exactly 16 years apart. They have the same birthday. So
Wow.
yeah, which is wild. But a couple of years ago, I knew that there was like some, I mean, you just get a sense. I guess there's a whole lot of like spiritual lingo that I could throw on it, but you just get a sense when it's time to shift into something different. And I don't know, I was just really unsettled. And not like in a not like in a holy way. I don't know how to put that. It's more in a like, something's got to give and something's got to change kind of way. And I was just about to begin the process of becoming a real estate agent
Wow.
back in Mississippi. When I mean, when I say suddenly, I don't know that suddenly is the right word, but sort of out of the blue, I kind of on a whim, I went and auditioned for The Voice at my wife's insistence, because we had known that the audition was like coming because you register, or you can register way earlier for the open call auditions. And but I also had sort of, I don't know, when I talk about these things, I want to make it pretty clear that I'm not being pitiful or like self-deprecating. I'm just being honest. I had sort of thought there's no way that they would pick me, so I wasn't going to go. But she sort of insisted, and so I went. And so summer of 2020, I won. I like won the whole show. It's a long process, and so now, really, the best way that I know how to put it, as far as myself, like just me, not talking about our entire family, because man, we literally have this swath of things that our family does and we get to do, and that are blessings. But I pretty much, wherever I am, I tell every crowd that now I just get to go all over the place and tell people I love them, and that's what I do.
That's inspiring, and what a cool story. What a cool heart, just to share the love of God and to follow. Maybe it felt like a whim or a next obedient step. Also some encouragement or insistence, persistence from your wife. And I
Yeah.
think that it's all part of the process of God's plan. And if you're willing to, like, take us through open audition, and then
Okay.
what was it like from there?
You mean the voice
Yeah,
process?
the voice.
Yeah. So okay. So the open call auditions were in Atlanta, Georgia. The ones that I went to, they have them all over the country. But mine were in Atlanta, Georgia. I lived at the time about 4.5, 5 hours maybe away from Atlanta. So I drove in, spent the night in a really cheap, kind of scary motel. I don't know. I just was kind of trying to save money. We have a big family, and
Yeah.
so I got up really early the next morning because I don't know. I know this is a podcast, so you can't see me, but I'm like putting up air quotes right now. Like, you have an appointment, for your audition, but so do, 4,000 other people. It's like two different appointment times in the day. So the first appointments are like thousands of people, and then the second ones are thousands of people. I stood in line for hours, man, long, long time. I got there maybe 5 in the morning ish. I don't remember exactly. Stood in line for a really long time, and then eventually got broken into a group of 10 people and went in and sang, and they said yes. And so at that moment, because it's a process, and I'm pretty sure that it's widely known that when you go to The Voice, you don't just like go and they say, "Hey, we like you. You're going to go have a blind audition." So I always make the joke with people, like, I know how to read. Like, I read the paperwork, but I just didn't think that they would want someone like me. So my wife and me both were kind of like, we do want to show our kids that they can, that just try things, just give it a
Yeah.
shot, take a risk. And so it was kind of more like, I guess that would be the takeaway from the whole audition would be that, hey, look, I've been doing the same thing for 100 years, and I feel like it's time to change something. So we're just taking a couple of chances. And anyway, well, when they said yes, I had to go buy some clothes and stuff, because I didn't think I would get the call back, and the callback was the next day. So I went, and I knew that. I mean, it's in the paperwork. I just didn't expect that I would get it. So, they said yes in the callback, and then the process sort of begins. There's several steps to the process. I'm not really. It's 2 years later now, and I'm still not certain what I'm allowed to share. But once I got a and I knew that I was going to have a blind audition on the show, that, that is when I know everyone that's, old enough to understand what people are saying has heard the phrase "do it afraid."
Yes.
That's when I really did start doing it afraid, because I was just mortified. Like there's no way. Like I am, and again, I'll say, I'm not saying this like in a pitiful way. I'm just being honest, and it really is a testament to, like, you give God a chance, man. All you got to do is give God a shot, and because I would not say like I was the only one. Like I would not say that, but I was one of very few, very very few people who really kind of did not belong. Like these people are all accomplished performers and vocalists and artists, and they travel around, and they have shows and they have management, and I just showed up. Like I just showed up one day.
I love it.
uh
I love it.
yeah.
So Todd, what about your song? And the reason I ask this is a while back, I watched Walk the Line, kind of the documentary or story interpretation of Johnny Cash's story.
Yeah.
And there's a
Yeah.
moment that he had, and his family's down and out, and he needs finances, and he's got this dream, and he's in, I believe, Nashville. And he gets, he wants to cut a record, but the guy's like, come back in a month. And the guy ended up giving him an audition, and he's like, we don't need that song. He goes, give me the song that's in your soul. If you had, and then he switches the song, and they cut a whole record that day, I believe the story goes. But what was your song? Like, what did you open with the blind audition?
Oh, on The Voice, I opened with a Bob Seger song, "We've Got Tonight," and that just it's wild because I don't know, I kind of sang that in some earlier auditions, almost just frankly in the when I first got the call back. I just really wasn't expecting it, and so I was scrambling for songs to sing. Like, what am I going to sing out here? And I wanted to do something that kind of fit my voice. I wanted to do a song that I really liked, because I feel like that translates, that you're not just singing something. So I did a Bob Seger song, and I felt good about it, but it apparently went over really well. All the coaches turned, and tons of media outlets, reached out, and all the things. Apparently it just went really, really well. So
God, it's fun. And then how about your final song, like your moment on The Voice? Take us to that, the most recent or the last song. What did you think
yeah,
of that?
my finale song on the show was "I Can Only Imagine." It's the
Yeah.
probably, I don't want to say, but most likely like the biggest faith mega hit that ever happened. Maybe not, but I'm pretty sure. I did "I Can Only Imagine," and I asked the music department. They are very, let me just say, the entire production of The Voice, they were just really good to me, and they're very, I don't know how to put it. They're constructively critical when it needs to be, but they're also very accommodating, and they listen to what you want and what you're feeling. And so I asked them to change the arrangement, a little, not the, well, maybe not the arrangement, just the instrumentation, maybe, because I know, that "I Can Only Imagine" has that very classic piano intro, and so I asked them to take that out and change it to strings instead, and they did, and it was great. And that was received just really well. And it's a funny story about that is, I don't want to lie, so I have racked my brain, even in my time as a pastor and a worship pastor. I don't think I ever sang "I Can Only Imagine," like even in a funeral. because tons of people have it in their funerals. And now, man, now I sing it everywhere I go. It's on the set list because everyone saw it on The Voice and they expect it, from me. So I sing it all the time. But that was the finale song.
God, it's incredible. And of course you won. And I think what an
Yeah,
accomplishment and what a step of faith. And I think that in the process too, it's created a lot of opportunities where people want to hear your experiences. And
yeah,
you and your wife Brooke have a brand new book releasing
yeah,
called Every Little Win, talking about the voice, but celebrating the wins along the way. And I think that
yeah.
it's an inspiring message. But tell us, what's your hope for the listener today about maybe they're on a mountaintop, maybe they're actually feeling like they're more in an anonymous season. Tell us the message of every little win.
Oh man, every little win. Um, it was so very important to us, because all we know how to do is sort of convey what we want the world to hear from us, because we don't know how to write a book or any of those things. People helped us a ton, but it's weird because it started a little different and then it sort of morphed and grew into something better, which was that, you know first of all, it's important to pay attention to where you are now and how God is using that, because what we wanted to do, and so many people have talked to me since they've read it, and thankfully, they've said that apparently we accomplished our goal, at least a little, at least with a few people. What we wanted to do is we wanted to sort of convey this message that, sure, I went on national TV and a kabillion people watched and I won, and the eyes, and it was during COVID, so no one had anything to do but watch TV. And so tons of people saw that. And I don't despise that at all. I mean, it was fantastic, but that moment, as almost perfect as it was, that was sort of, and I don't want to even say it was a culmination. I feel like that's not really even fair, but it was just one big moment. What really sort of makes us who we are is all of these little things that have happened along the way and all these battles that everyone's fighting. And so we wanted to sort of convey that like, maybe you're not on The Voice winning a TV show, but you do have kids who are struggling, or you have been in marital trouble. We've been there. We almost divorced. We've had kids who were sick. We've been through 2 adoptions, and those are not easy. I have fought a spirit of just like Pharisaical religion, and we put that in there. I know a lot of people fight that and deal with that. We've had real, like, I'll never forget when I was a much younger man, I would watch movies with my wife where there's these schoolhouse bullies, and I always would comment on how over the top that was. But then one of my children went through a very severe season of, like, very severe time of bullying. I mean, like, it was remarkably bad, and people are dealing with these things. My wife has had, I mean, we all, even Paul said that he had a thorn in his flesh. My wife has had, I guess, a lifelong battle with anxiety,
Yeah.
and we kind of share that in there, and she's fairly open. As a matter of fact, so many of these podcasts and interviews, we've had people say, man, y'all were sure brave for sharing all that. So we would shut down the podcast when it was over, and I would look at her and be like, oh my God, I hope we didn't share too much. Everybody talks about how brave we were. I hope we didn't share too much. So we basically, that's the message that we wanted to get to the world, that, like, first of all, like, where you are right now, even if it's a good place, unless for some reason it's God's plan that this is the end of your journey on earth, this is not the end, you
Yeah.
know. And there's always something to remember and be. I even say about my oldest son who's out of the house now, a lot of my music, tons of my music, I'm getting ready to release a song on September 9th. It's just based on um, family and how I released a song not long ago called Slow Down. And it's kind of that, like, he's gone now. He's out of our house. And so now I wish I would have paid more attention to the nothing days, you know, the days where there was just nothing. We were just together, you know, because now he's gone. And it's like, there are times, because I'm in a hotel room right now. There are times I'm
Right.
alone in a hotel room, you know, and I just lay there and I try to remember more, you know. And so it's just really important to me and to my wife and our family, to convey to people that we're all sort of walking this journey, you know. And sometimes things are great and sometimes things are not so great. And I mean, since The Voice, I mean, I one of the bigger misconceptions I think that the general public may have, there is no yellow brick road, you know. Even when you win The Voice, you know, you just keep working and you keep fighting. And I would say in the last 2 years, realistically, and I mean very, very, very realistically, I'm not exaggerating, I've had more no's in the last 2 years than I had in my entire life before, you know. And that's part of it. It's just, but you just keep working, you know, and you keep trusting God. Yeah.
Todd, it's so powerful. And if you're watching on YouTube, you've seen Todd's hat where it just says slow down.
Yeah.
And that message and that song speaks to me with two young girls.
Yeah.
Life is going so fast. I've seen this illustration, Todd, where there's kind of this jar of marbles, and there's 932 marbles in the jar. And you're like, okay, what's the significance of 932? And from the day you bring or from the week you bring your child home from the hospital until the week that they graduate high school, there's 932 weeks.
Yeah.
So I've actually shared this on the podcast before of like, there's 932 pizza parties on Friday nights that our family gets to
Mhm.
have. And if we choose to go out of town or travel or speak or have an event, that's one of the pizza parties. And, you know, this morning our girls get up early. And so we were at the park and there's sand at the park and it goes so fast through our little girl's hands. And it's like, man, that's time.
Yeah.
And
It really is.
it really causes me to go, you know what? Like, what matters most? Because I want to live my life. I don't know about you, but I think the listener, I think all of us are wired with eternity written on our hearts, and we are eternal beings living this temporary human existence on planet Earth. And it all goes so fast. And it's kind of like
Yeah.
that sand slipping through our hands. So I don't want to waste my life. I don't want to wish it away. I want to embrace each moment and just live my life for the things that matter most. And I really believe those are the eternal things, the things that matter and
Mhm.
last forever. And so I'd ask you this, like, what would you say, maybe what piece of encouragement to the person who feels like they're not experiencing God's victory? They feel like they're actually more in the thick of it, in the battle, maybe as a young parent or as a young adult pastor, or trying to have kids, or just looking at life and maybe it's not turning out the way that they've expected, and they're having to adjust some of their expectations. They're fighting a health issue, or they're fighting some very real battles with job or career or life or finances. What would you say to that person who longs for victory and they're not experiencing it right now?
Oh, man. Oh man. So many things. Like, first of all, I would, you know, my wife and me, we have this conversation on the weekly. I mean, we really do. I would say, first of all, don't paint pictures of Egypt just because you're in the desert right now. You know, And also don't forget what God has done, because it's easy to do that when you get in a season when you feel like you're not really in that big and those are coming. They're going to come. But really, maybe, I don't want to say more importantly, that's probably not fair, but maybe more importantly, find something that's good. There's always something that's good. There's something about your life is good, like we and this is in that same vein, but a little different, maybe a little tributary off of it. Our family, in 2017, I'll give you an example. In 2017, I woke up one Tuesday morning. I got myself dressed. I was walking to the door. Very literally, I walking to the door. So a lot of times when you're an artist, people think that you're taking creative liberties. No, I was literally, like, the song that's coming out September 9th. It's the only song that I've ever co-written and am releasing that is fully autobiographical. We took no creative liberties. It's all true. But I was walking out the door and my phone rang and our life just sort of fell apart, like in that moment. And so the advice I think I would give people too, on top of those other things, would be what we had. You probably see we keep these. My whole family wears these red strings. During that time, we literally, my wife actually, thank God for her, called our entire family together into the living room of our house, and we had to make a deliberate decision that this bad thing that has happened and we are in the thick of now will not govern our day-to-day life, because it had become, we were a couple of weeks in, and it had become like it was all of everything. It's all we talked about. It's all we dealt with. It's all we worked on. It's all we tried to figure out. And so that day, every one of us tied one of these red strings to remember, whatever happens, you're tied to somebody who loves you and you're not alone, and so I would say, if you're in that, don't let it govern your life. Like that time, remember that there really is, even the scripture says weeping does last for the night, and it does. And but the morning is coming and joy's coming with it, and so I would really, really encourage you. And I know I'm kind of a really super practical guy. It's gotten me into more trouble sometimes that I'm too practical, but I know when people say things like that, when you're in the middle of it, your carnal brain just wants to be like, yeah, I'm tired of hearing. But really, don't let that, whatever it is, don't let it govern your life. Sure, you have to deal with it. Don't ignore it. Yeah, we didn't ignore it. The thing, we dealt with it, and actually now it's several years, 5 years later, or whatever, and I still feel like God will vindicate that situation, because it's not fully, you move on from it though. I'll tell you this is some advice that I think has helped me a ton. When you're in those seasons like that, especially in the beginning part, it's kind of like you got a sack of rocks on your back, and what you want to do, what every one of us wants to do, is just drop it. You want to drop that sack and be free of it. But what really happens is you drop a rock at a time. And before you know it, like one day I literally looked at my wife one day in the truck and I was like, I don't think about that every day now. In the beginning, it governed our thoughts. Now and then, like when I'm talking to you, I remember it and what happened. But it's just a little at a time, God frees you from it and you heal and, sort of learn to fly again,
And that's life. I love that illustration. I don't think I've ever heard it that way before, of like, okay, there's a sack of rocks,
Yeah.
and how you surrender it isn't necessarily an immediate, all at once, just drop and
Yeah.
you're free. It is that pebble at a time. It's one rock at a time. So today, how can I surrender something small? And we underestimate sometimes the small, and we view the small as insignificant. And yet God's designed the world that we live in to be incremental and to compound with interest. And so a workout today might not change our life, but it builds some muscles. And
Right.
one rock at a time, it builds that muscle of surrender that it takes to become free.
Yeah.
And I love it. I think that also it speaks to me because I'm very optimistic. And so I think sometimes people will ask me or my wife, Micah, and they'll be like, man, is life just always good for you? Like, are you always so happy? And I definitely experience the joy of the Lord. And there's also seasons of discouragement or there's
Yeah.
challenges that I face. And I think sometimes operating up here, um, the challenge with it is when something challenging happens is you can really feel like you're in a pit of despair.
Yeah.
As a deep feeler and as a deep thinker. And so I would just say, like, for that person who's going through it, like, not to view arrival as the goal, because God is a
Right.
destination. And so I heard actually a Super Bowl champion who beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, and his name is Steve Weatherford, and he shared openly, like, he won the Super Bowl, has a ring, and he looks out his hotel room at people who weren't even fans of the team, and they're celebrating with like the wrong jersey on, and they're outside partying, and he felt really depressed after winning the Super Bowl. And so
Mhm.
I think that the moment, and I'm not speaking for you, but I think the moment after a victory, sometimes we can also feel a sense of, is this all there is? And
Yeah.
so I can speak to it in this, that we are 9 weeks into launching Young Adults Today as a nonprofit 501c3 ministry. And it's challenging and it's exhilarating. And yet I just don't want to wish it away, because
Right.
there will be a day, Lord willing, where some things look different. But I don't want to wish away this season of family or this season of ministry, because I think that there's a preparation that God's using and building. And one of the things that we love to ask every guest is why they believe in young adult ministry. So I'll ask you, Todd, why do you believe that the faith of the next generation is so vital, is so important?
Oh man. Well, really, probably several reasons. Number one, because I personally, now this is, maybe this has been the sentiment for 100 years. I don't know, but personally, I feel like the young adults of faith today really are sort of the last, you know, like the last front, like y'all, because faith not only is just faith under attack. I mean, but so many people are just sort of walking away from it, and look, I'm all about deconstructing a bad view of God and a wrong view of God, but don't deconstruct your faith, like I get that. And so I almost, and I'm, again, I may be wrong. And like I said, this might have been said for 100 years, people before me, but I feel like the young adults now are sort of the last stand almost, in a way, and so them walking in their faith, especially, and man, like even what you were saying, when you're a young adult, I will never forget it. In my 20s, it was so hard for me to understand why I wasn't living and having the things that people in their 40s and 50s were having, but they've had a lot more life. Even on the show, I had a lot of people say, well, you got all this stuff going on, you got all these kids you adopted and la la la. And I was like, well, look, uh number one, I got 20 years on all y'all, and and I was like, number two, it's your story. If you want a good one, write it. Like, I didn't
Wow.
wake up one day with two adopted daughters in my lap. It was work. And so I really would encourage young adults, and I know it's hard. It's so much easier said than done. I'm telling you, I'm living proof. There will be a day that you look back and your heart misses when you were poor and you didn't have anything, just each other, and and whatever 2 or 3 kids you had. Man, I tell my wife all the time, this past Christmas, I won't forget as long as I live, because she agreed with me. I said, I kind of miss Christmas when we were super poor. Like, no, don't get me wrong, I'm not rich now, but like, I do. I miss those days, because they're just it just seems like there was a purity, that wasn't jumbled up with, you know, you know, labels and management, and all the people sing this and don't sing that, or don't, I've literally had people say, I love your spirit and I felt the spirit of God in the room, but you really ruined the whole thing because you kept your hat on. And I'm like, what? I'm like, oh, I'm going bald, so I just keep my hat on most of the time. But yeah, man, y'all, look, I don't, not no pressure, but I do feel like um, that the young generation now, really, it does seem a lot like y'all are the last, kind of like the last stand. That, and on the other hand, with when COVID came and all the things happened, um, I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way. So I'm trying to choose my words here. Because I'm part of the kingdom and the church, and I love it, man. I love it. I love being part of it. It's been challenging and rewarding and all, but when all that happened, I did think maybe the silver lining is the church, and I'm doing air quotes again if you're listening. The church could use a reset in some ways.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of times we get so bogged down in what people have created, and their ideas, and because what happens really in the church more than anywhere else, I think, is over the last 2,500 years or whatever, 200 2,000 years, you know little by little, people had ideas and we turned that into doctrine. You know what I mean? And we're a little bogged down in it, let's be honest.
Todd, I think that's so true and really important to acknowledge that really, when you look at today, you're spot on when the church needs a reset. And here's, I think, why is over time with anything, there's mission drift.
Yep,
You look
all
at
right.
General Motors. I was just studying General Motors, and when their company had a vision and founders, they had 5 different target audiences, demographics. So they designed Chevrolet, Oldsmobile, Buick, Cadillac, and Pontiac, all at different price points. And over time, why is there no longer Oldsmobile? Why is there
Yeah.
no longer Pontiac? And
Pontiac, right?
why
Yeah.
Buick really had some challenges? Well, the Cadillac should have actually fallen under, or sorry, the Corvette, the most popular, one of the most expensive cars, should have been under the Cadillac umbrella. But there was
Mhm.
mission drift over time.
Yeah.
And I think families experience this, marriage experiences, and the church really is no different. That there is mission drift over time,
Mhm.
where you said it so well. People had an idea, not bad, but it was a human idea. And it might have been what the Spirit of God was leading one community or one church to
Yeah.
do. But the mistake is then when we cookie cut that to our
Mhm.
context, or when
Right.
we turn it into doctrine. Well, okay, where did Jesus say that? Or where is it in scripture? And I think
Right.
that a helpful guide can be, where is it a biblical absolute or imperative? Where is it a community standard? Or where is it just a personal preference? To your point about the hat,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
that's just a personal preference, but let's major on the major, and the rest, it can negotiate because it's a minor.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know how you and Brooke as a family, how you, now that your life looks different, how have you kept the main thing, or how is your goal to not mission drift with your
Yeah.
calling or with your faith? when that's kind of the default, is that we go on autopilot and we go on cruise control, how is
Yeah.
your faith and the vision of God or the mission of the church, how are you keeping that the main thing now?
Oh, yeah. On a family level, I really credit my wife more for this than myself. She's much better at it than I am. But it's simpler than you might think. We just have to be really deliberate, very deliberate to say this is who we are, and this is what myself and her. We have to be very deliberate about spending time together, and we have to be very deliberate about planning things. We don't plan something every day, but we plan things to do with the children. Very deliberate about that. And now I've got two sons that are one's out, two that are on the cusp of adulthood, and so I have to be very deliberate with them. And but as far as kingdom stuff goes, I'll be really honest. I really, it's odd because God has really blessed me in that I have I don't know the word I'm looking for, access. I don't know if access is the word, but it's like I have access to more of a secular world and also the church world.
Yeah.
Um, and so I guess missionally, it's tough because when you do that, you're also going to get kickback from both of those worlds, which I do from time to time. And so I just have to I have to kind of try to stay focused on what I'm doing, what I feel like it is that God wants me to do. And that it's not just me out here saying, oh yeah, I'll do this or that. I really do have a very specific kingdom vision for what I'm doing, and I just have to really focus on that, because it's easy for me, especially with the church side, because that's my entire life and history.
Right.
It's easy for me to sort of want to push some of these other aspects of the vision aside, because the church people are way more welcoming of one side, but then what I'm doing, I feel like, and I mean, I prayed a lot about this, and some of this, man, I don't know, I'm kind of flying blind by the seat of my britches, but I'm doing the best I can. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to put what God has put in me to share with the world, because I believe that now don't get me wrong, I don't think any of us should throw any biblical truth out. Do not ever do that, But I do think there are certain things, each of us have different personalities. And I feel like God has given each of us certain things that are sort of like a strong point for us to really share with the world. And I do feel like if I'm not careful, one thing I'm trying really hard not to do, and it's harder than it sounds too. If I'm not careful, I will put that into like a shadow box that only Christians will look in. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to put that into a circumstance that only people of faith see.
Yeah.
You already know the Lord, now don't get me wrong, because I always said, to me, if you really think about it, when I was pastor, and I used to say this, man, probably every Sunday or every other Sunday at somewhere in the message, if you really, really think about it, the entire kingdom is broken down into two ministries. One is the ministry of reconciliation, or calling people to Jesus, and the other is edification, people that already know Jesus. And everything falls under one of those umbrellas. You're either drawing people to Jesus or you're ministering to people that already know it. And I don't want to sacrifice the first one to satisfy the second one. You see what I mean?
It's spot on. It's spot on. And I think those are the right questions to ask, and just to recognize that, there's a degree of intentionality that following Jesus takes, and submitting and surrendering to the call of God, and just being obedient with what he's placed in your head, in your heart, in your hands, and knowing that we're not always going to get everything perfectly right all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But just walking in step with him. And I love that it
Yeah.
said, to your point about slow down with that message, It's said that we follow a 3.5 mile an hour Savior. And that's the speed that Jesus walked
Yeah.
everywhere in the human
Yeah,
flesh.
that's right.
Is he went from this place to that place? How fast? Probably about three and a half
Yeah.
miles an hour.
Walking.
That's walking. And so I think sometimes we get ahead of him because we want to
Oh
go
man, for sure.
fast and it's instantly gratifying, or it's just the pace of the New York minute or our culture. And it's just like, hang on, we're walking and I want to be in step with him. So I don't want to fall behind and I don't want to get too far ahead. I just want to walk at that 3.5 mile an hour pace with him. And Todd, how we love to close each conversation is just put 5 minutes on the clock and ask you five final thoughts. They're a little bit rapid fire. So about a
Sure.
minute or so each. You up for that challenge?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. And these are lighthearted too. Our listeners know that it's just to get to know you better. So to start it, what would you say your go-to road trip snack is?
Oh man, my go-to road trip snack is turkey bites. It's kind of like Slim Jim, but it's made out of turkey. Because it's a long story, but right now, probably not forever. I'm off red meat, so
Yeah.
so it's those little turkey bites.
Protein, energy, let's go. Okay.
Yeah, man.
What would you say one thing that you want to teach each of your kids before they leave the house is?
Oh, for sure. One thing, gosh, if I only pick one thing, I guess I would want to teach my kids to have grace for themselves, man. Because if you're not careful, you're going to be your own worst enemy, and you're bound to screw up. It's just going to happen. It's not an if, it's a when. So I want to teach them to have an abundance of grace for themselves.
It's amazing. This is the curveball. And I was
All
at a
right.
game last night and I got a foul ball for my daughter. So the curveball
Okay.
is, if you could ask me anything under the sun, what would you want to know? It keeps me on my toes and engaged.
Oh man. What got you into ministry is what I would love to know. Like, how did you get into the ministry that you're in?
And you know what? I worked the same job all through high school, all through college. It was at a batting cage. It had like laser tag, birthday parties, pizza, arcade, laser tag, bumper car, stuff like that. It was called Grand Slam. And I got that job because I wanted to use the batting cages and I was running low on spare cash. And so they offered me a job. I was like 14. And I thought, man, I'm good with people, love helping them have a good time. I could see this as a future in business. And there was a moment where I went on a missions trip to Belize, 2010. And it was like God showed me so clear coming to summer camp the next week after that, graduating high school, about to go off to college, actually to a business school. And God just showed me the power of the cross, the blood of Christ, and that is my call, is to declare the goodness of God to my generation and to ones to come. And so for me, it's just been one step at a time. I did have a vision in 2012, so a decade ago, of thousands of young adults ages 18 to 30 on their knees, lifting their hands in worship, surrendering their lives to God. And so it's those still small voice moments where God showed
Yeah.
me a picture, gave me a vision, or whispered something that I wrote down in my journal, that it's just like, I believe the faith of the next generation is worth everything. So worked at a local church, started a campus ministry for 4 years, and now we're doing kind of a new ministry where we're reaching young adults in our world today through a podcast, conference, weekend retreats, and figuring out what the next step is, one small step at a time. But
Yeah.
that's the vision.
Yep. I'll tell you what, that'll be the rest of your life. I tell people all the time, people say don't miss the forest for the trees. I'm like, don't miss the trees for the forest. A lot of times you want to see the big thing and you don't pay attention to the little things. So that's kind of the rest of your life. I'm right there. I'm taking a step at a time, even now, and I'm 44. So
I love it. It's encouraging. And okay, if you're not allowed to do this one, I can edit it out if you're under contract or something. But we got two
okay.
little girls. They love music. Is there a song in your heart that you'd be willing to just 10 seconds sing them a chorus?
Oh yeah. What song do they like? Is there one they love?
You
If I
know,
know it, I'll sing some of it.
okay, there's a few. I would say one of their favorite is The Blessing right now.
Oh yeah. So it's the one that goes, may his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations. What is it? For your family and your children and their children and their children. I can't remember the rest, but that's a little bit of it. I do kind
So
of know it.
that's so fun. They love singing that. Like, our daughters were both born during the pandemic, Todd. So I'm learning now what it means to be a dad outside of a pandemic,
Right.
which is, I think, in many ways a lot more open. But some of my favorite moments were rocking them to sleep and
Mhm.
singing that song over them.
Oh man, yeah. Yeah.
That's
It's
special.
wild. It's wild how different people are. I remember when Judah came home. This is not going to be the most Christian faith-based thing I've said all day, but I would rock her to sleep and I would sing the Lord of the Rings, when the cold of winter comes.
I love it.
Starless night will cover it. I would sing that to her, rocking her to sleep.
Hey, it's good to have a repertoire because
Oh yeah.
sometimes it's convincing a sleepy person to go to sleep, and music helps us do that. But Todd,
Yeah.
it's been an amazing conversation. How I'd love to close today is just, man, is there a piece of encouragement that you'd have on your heart or in your mind for a young pastor, a young leader, or a young adult listening, that's just burning in your heart that you'd love to share with them?
Oh, listen, do not, where you are right now, please. I know I'm not 80, but I've been through a lot of years of ministry. Do not despise where you are. Don't overlook the people that you are loving right now because you're waiting on a bigger crowd of people to love. Love the ones in front of you. I'm telling you, that matters more than anything. And you know, there, I mean, I hate to say one piece, there's so many different pieces of advice. You will go through seasons where people that you never thought would betray you do, but you'll also go through seasons where people that you never dreamed would come to your rescue just completely save you, and so just stay encouraged. If you're hurt, don't try to, don't do. That's my thing. One thing that the church, I think, myself included, could have done better through the years is validate pain. It don't always be like, oh, well, overlook that, or you're just being church hurt or whatever. If you're hurt, just be hurt. Um, Joseph got sold into slavery. Him and his dad had a super close relationship. By the time he finally got reunited with his dad died. And what's the scripture say? Like, he took some time to hurt. That's what he did to be in. So feel that. But really, I guess I'll go back to the first one. There's nothing more important. Just love the people in front of you right now.
Yes and amen. It is, we never want to overlook the person that we're having the conversation with right now.
Right.
I
Yeah.
think
That
this is
person you're with right this second.
right. I've seen a minister model this to me is like, if he's in a lobby at a large church, people walk by and want his attention, and he's talking to somebody in the lobby, it just stays right here. And
Mhm.
I think that it's easy to look over people's shoulder if we're not careful.
Sure is. Yeah.
I mean, just what you said, Todd, it reminds me, and it shows me like this is what's important, and it communicates it to people. And I think that it's really easy to experience. If somebody looks over your shoulder, you're like, okay, talk later. But if
Yeah.
somebody has that heart to heart, it's like, hey, this is right here, and we're really grateful. And
That's
so,
right.
man, blessings. Excited about your new book about every little win. And thanks for taking time to invest in this conversation in our community of young leaders.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm sorry. I think the maid just tried to come in.
I
All
love
right.
it.
Yeah. My checkout is like right now. So, all right, man.
Amazing.
Thanks so much.
You bet. God bless.